Hello and welcome to another video tutorial of iColorama, this time on the new brush capabilities built into the new release 3.81. There are three new types of brushes. They are paint, plane, and bound, and we're going to be touching on each of those as well as some added features to the brush capabilities within iColorama. We're going to be working with this image right here, which is a headshot of mine. I've taken it through Style Simplify to sort of smooth out my face, my complexion, and some of the hair, just to prepare it for the brush work. We're going to start talking about plane brushes, P-L-A-N-E brushes. Both plane and bound brushes work like the artist brushes within iColorama in that they bring out the underlying image onto a canvas or background. One of the new functions within this version is the definition of the background. There's a background button down here at the bottom, and when I tap that, I can either use the original image as the background, I can define a color, or I can use a photo as the background or the canvas for the painting. Let's just change the color first of all. You can choose any one of the colors available, for any kind of color image within any app. But there's also a swatch button that allows you to pick one of the colors that is already existing in the underlying image, and you can use that as your background color. So I'm going to choose this real dark brown right down here. I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to apply that dark brown to the entire canvas. My source for my painting is the underlying image. That can be changed, and we'll go into that a little bit later, but next I want to look at the brushes themselves. Plain brushes have a very well-defined brush tip. So you want to be choosy in which brush you use to do the plain brush effect. I'm going to choose this crosshatch here that will show you just what I'm talking about. I'm going to lower the size here a bit, and then I'm going to start painting. I just dab, and if I dab, you can see that the crosshatch shows through. The brush tip that I'm using very definitely changes the way that this underlying image is coming through. If I make a longer stroke, then it smears that brush tip, but it still brings out the underlying image. There are several new buttons up at the upper left. They are undo and redo, clean, and erase. If I make a stroke out here in the white and I determine that that's not what I want to do, then I can undo that last stroke by using the undo button. Plain brushes cross boundaries. If I stroke within the darker portion, the hair, then you can see it takes that dark or the gray out into the outer white. However, if I use the white, if I stroke along the white, then it carries the white over the boundary between the white and the dark, over into the dark area. So you can keep on painting around there, and you can see that sort of effect that you're getting. It smudges, it scrapes between the two color areas. Bound brushes, on the other hand, do not cross the boundary. Wherever you're touching, it recognizes where the boundary between two color edges are. Let's take a look at that. Bound brushes, unlike plain brushes, do not reflect the brush tip. It's not as strong as strong a distinction, the brush tip you use. So it's not as necessary for you to go for the particular brush tip that you're looking for. We're going to use a photo for my background here on the bound brushes. What I'm going to do is use this marbleized gradient between pink and blue as my background. Now I'm going to choose a watercolor. I'm going to reduce the size of that watercolor brush tip, and I'm going to reduce the opacity a bit so you can see what I'm doing here with bound brushes, where the area ends. So I'm going to start up here in the hair, and as you see, if I stroke along here or dab along here, then it just picks up the hair area and it doesn't go into any other area of the screen. This is wonderful for people like me who don't know how to make strokes and actually stay within the lines. Here, I'm going to brush the collar in. Oops, the collar has gone a little over into the outlying area. Let's use the erase function, and then I can dab along here and it will erase up to the boundary. Turn erase off, and now I can go back in here on the face and start brushing in. So you can see as I start brushing around the eye, it doesn't overlap into the eye area. That's because it recognizes the boundary between the two different color areas. Let's zoom in and touch on the eye and see what we can get there. I'll zoom in and touch on the eye, and it can pick up the black, the dark gray, you can see the catch light portion there, and then I paint into the whites. And I'm just dabbing, and I don't have to worry about the different colors that are underneath. It will recognize where the borders of those colors are. I can go back over here to this other eye and do the same thing. And paint around the eye. If I turn the opacity back up, you can see that this is where I'm at right now with this particular painting. I can also change the source of my painting, and that's a new capability as well. I've been painting using that headshot as my background, as what I'm painting in. I can change that. I can change it to let's go back up here to a sort of abstract background. I'm going to apply, and I can start painting in that abstract background around here. So you can change your source and your background in the new iColorama. The third type of brush is paint. Paint is not like the artist, the plane, or the bound brushes in that it tries to use the underlying image at all. It depends entirely upon the color that you choose in your color picker. That is what you are going to be painting on to the image. So you can use a swatch and use an underlying color. You can use the pick, which is the eyedropper. And if you look at the color thumbnail down in the bottom, as I move my finger around on the images itself, that color thumbnail reflects which color you're going to be painting with. Now I can change my brush tip. Just take a nice, easy to see arrows right here, and I can paint using those. It used to be that if you wanted to do this kind of painting, you would have to define your color in a preset gradient and then mask it out and then invert the mask so that none of that preset gradient showed, and then mask in new color, but that's not necessary in this. You can change your color. You can do different. Let's get a nice dark one. We'll change our brush tip and paint in with that. So this helps bring iColorama closer to an Art Rage or a Procreate that's a brush tip where you are brushing in your own image. This is not as useful to me because I can't draw a straight line to save my life. I cannot. But those are the 3 brush tips. You've got your source and your background definition, and you've also got new functions that allow you to step back if you don't like what you've done. We've already shown you undo and erase. Here's clean. I don't like any of those brush strokes I've made. It says, do you want to clean the canvas? And I say, okay. If you look at my corresponding blog entry on Enthusiasm Noted, which will be linked to in the bottom at this YouTube video, you will see some additional examples of how I use paint, plane and bound brushes to create artworks, and I hope this has been useful to you. Enjoy.